Hello everyone, my name is YANLI. Amber. In this video presentation for QIM513 Foundations of Instructional Design, I will be presenting on the topic Community of Inquiry in Flipped Learning Classrooms. In this presentation, we will explore the Community of Inquiry, or COI, framework and examine how it can be strictly applied within flipped pedagogical contexts. This topic is particularly relevant for modern educators, as teaching and learning increasingly take place in online and blended environments. Educators require robust instructional frameworks to ensure that students are not merely consuming content, but actively engaging in meaningful learning process. The goal of this presentation is to demonstrate how the integration of community of inquiry model and flipped learning can support the design of a more effective and engaging learning experience in higher education. In today's section, we have a clear roadmap covering four main areas. We will start by explaining the theoretical origins for our community of inquiry model to understand where it comes from. Next, we will critically examine its three core elements: social, teaching, and cognitive presence. These are the building blocks of the framework. Once we understand the theory, we will move to practice. We will learn how to apply the COI framework by mapping it directly onto the structures of flipped learning classrooms. Finally, we will briefly discuss the pedagogical implications this has for postgraduate education contexts. Let's start with the history and the theoretical foundation. The COI model was developed in the year 2000 by three key researchers: Randall Garrison, Terry Anderson, and Walter Ultra at the University of Albert. It is important to note that this model emerged specifically from their research into effective online and blended learning environments. They wanted to solve the problem of isolation in distance education. The model is deeply grounded in John Davis' educational philosophy and social constructivism. This means it focuses on the idea that learning is social. We learn best when we communicate and share experience with each other, rather than studying alone in a vacuum. Here you can see the visual representation of framework. According to Garrison and his colleagues, a community of inquiry is composed of both teachers and students as the key participants. The framework suggests that a meaningful educational experience is not random. It is created by the dynamic interaction of three independent presence. These are social presence, teaching presence, and cognitive presence. The overlapping area in the center represents the deep learning experience we aim for. If any one of these circles is missing, the educational experience is incomplete. We will look at each of these in detail in the following sections. You might ask, Why do we need the specific model? The answer lies in the challenges we face with model education. Online and blended learning environments often struggle with a lack of human connection. Students can easily feel isolated, bored, or disconnected when they learn primarily through a screen. There is a strong need for better integration and engagement to keep students motivated. The COI framework masters because it provides a proven roadmap. It helps teachers design courses that support meaningful learning and ensures that technology is used to bring people together, building a true community rather than just a group of individuals. The first component we need to establish is social presence. This refers to the ability of learners to project themselves socially and emotionally into the community. In an online or flipped classroom, students need to feel like real people. It consists of three main categories. First is affective expression, which means sharing emotions, using humor and self-disclosure to show personality. Second is open communication, where students have reciprocal exchanges and show their aware of each other. Third is group cohesion, which is built through collaboration, detailed activities, and a shared sense of purpose. When these elements are present, students feel safe to participate. Now, let's look at what social presence actually looks like in a practice. It's not abstract. We can see it in specific activities, as shown on the slide. One key method is small group discussions. This allows students to interact directly and build relationships. Another method is peer feedback. When students review each other's work, they engage in open communication and learn to trust their peers. We can also use online forums. These digital spaces allow the community to continue outside of class hours. By integrating these activities, we transform a passive class into an active, cohesive group where students feel they belong. The second circle of framework is teaching presence. It is important to understand that this is not about the teacher standing and lecturing. It encompasses the entire design, facilitation, and the direction of the learning experience. Teaching presence has three distinct functions. The first is design and organization. This happens before the course starts, including curriculum planning and setting the roles. The second is fascinating discourse, where the teacher shapes the discussions and keep debates focused on critical issues. The third is direct instruction, where the teacher provides explanatory feedback, confirms understanding, and corrects misconceptions to ensure learning outcomes are met. How does teaching presence manifest specifically in a flipped classroom context. It appears in three practical ways. First, we use pre-class instructional videos. This represents the direct instruction component. Instead of lecture live, the teacher carries or creates videos that explain core concepts, allowing students to learn at their own pace. Second, we must provide clear learning instructions. This falls under design and organization. Since students are working independent before class, they need precise guidelines on what to watch and read. Finally, during the class, the teacher engages in active facilitation. The instructor moves around the room, guiding group work and correcting misunderstanding in real time. This shifts the teacher's role from a broadcaster to a coach. The third and arguably most challenging element is cognitive presence. To define this, we use the practical inquiry model developed by Garrison and his colleagues. This model describes the critical thinking not as a single event, but as a four-phase psychological process. It begins with a single event, usually a problem or a dilemma, that creates a sense of puzzlement. This leads to exploration, where students exchange information and brainstorm ideas. The third phase is integration, where learners connect these ideas to form a coherent solution. Finally, we reach resolution, where the solution is applied to real-world content or the hypothesis is tested. Why do we place so much emphasis on the circle? Because critical thinking develops gradually, not instantly. The practical inquiry model shows that deep learning requires a careful balance of reflection and discourse. Students need time to think alone, and they also need opportunities to discuss with each other. If we skip this, we might get simple information exchange but miss deeper levels of understanding. Our ultimate goal is the application of knowledge. By following this circle, we ensure that students do not just memorize facts but actually learn how to use them to solve problems. To help us evaluate if these presents are actually happening, researchers have developed specific indicators. This slide summarizes them into a helpful table. For social presence, we look for indicators like expressing emotions, humor, and asking questions to build cohesion. For teaching presence, we observe how the curriculum is set, how agreement is identified, and content is present. For cognitive presence, we track the student's journey from recognizing a problem to defending a solution. This table serves as a diagnostic tool for instructional designers to measure the health of their learning community. Now that we have a solid grasp of the theory, let's turn to the pedagogical approach. Flipped learning. This method reverses traditional instruction. Instead of spending class time on lectures, content is delivered outside. It consists of three distinct phases. Phase 1 is pre-class, focusing on individual engagement where students exercise recorded lectures independently. Phase 2 is in-class, which is dedicated to collaborative applications such as problem solving and peer teaching. Phase 3 is post-class, used for consolidation, reflection, and transferring knowledge to a new context. To appreciate the value of this model, we must contrast it with traditional classroom. The traditional model is often teacher-centered, where the instructor stands at the front and transmits content to passive students. Flipped learning, however, is fundamentally learner-centered. It shifts to focus from passive listening to active learning. In this model, the goal is not just the transmission of information, but the application of knowledge. The teacher's role changes from being sage on the stage to a guide who supports students as they actively construct their own understanding. However, implementing a flipped classroom is not without its difficulties. We must be realistic about these challenges. The first is student readiness. Not all students are prepared for the self-directed learning required in the pre-class phase. The second challenge is the increased workload. Creating video content and designing interactive activities requires significant time from instructors, and students also face a higher reading load. Finally, there is a dependence on technology. Reliable digital access is essential, and any technical barrier can disrupt the entire learning process. We need to plan for this issue in our design. This brings us to the core strategy of today's representation. Mapping of the community of inquiry onto flipped learning. We can strictly integrate the three presents across the phases. In the pre-class phase, teaching presence is dominant through graduate content, where cognitive presence begins with triggering events. Social presence can start early via online forms. In the in-class phase, social presence peaks through collaborative group work, and teaching presence transforms into active facilitation. Finally, in the post-class phase, students reach the resolution phase of cognitive presence through assessment case site. By mapping these frameworks together, we see that flipped learning naturally supports the progression through the particle inquiry circle. In conclusion, the community of inquiry framework is a powerful lens for designing flipped classrooms. By balancing social, teaching, and cognitive presence. We can move beyond simple content delivery to create deep and meaningful educational experience. Thank you for your time and attention. Thank you.